Captain Jinho Kim stood at the observation window of the military station, watching Earth spin slowly below. The blue planet looked peaceful from up here. Beautiful. Nothing about it suggested the violence that had shaped every person born on its surface. "Captain, the Valtorian transmission is coming through," Lieutenant Mireille Park said from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, pulling up the alien message on the main screen. Jinho turned away from the window. 3 years had passed since humanity made first contact with the Galactic Coalition. 3 years of careful diplomacy, of learning that Earth was not alone in the universe. 3 years of being treated like children by species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. The Valtorian ambassador appeared on screen. His reptilian features were cold, his scales a deep purple that reminded Jinho of a bruise. The translator device turned his hissing speech into flat, emotionless words. "Humans of Earth, the Valtorian Empire has studied your species. We have reviewed your physical capabilities, your technology, your history. We find you inadequate to govern yourselves in galactic space." Jinho felt his jaw tighten. Beside him, Corporal Do-hyun Choi muttered something under his breath. Mirai held up a hand for silence. The ambassador continued. "Your bodies are weak. You have no natural armor. Your senses are limited. You live short lives and die from the smallest injuries. Your world is small and soft. You know nothing of real struggle." "Soft world," Do-hyun whispered.
"Have they even looked at our history?"
The Valtorian's eyes seemed to stare directly at them through the screen. "The Empire offers you a choice. Submit to our rule. We will guide you, protect you from the dangers of the galaxy. In return, you will provide resources and labor. This is generous. We could simply take what we want." Jinho crossed his arms. He had fought in 3 wars before joining the Space Defense Force. He had seen what humans could do to each other over water, over land, over ideas. The scars on his back remembered the Jakarta conflict. The metal pins in his left knee remembered the Sahara campaign. "Or," the Valtorian said, "you may refuse. In which case, we will begin pacification operations. Your military will be eliminated. Your governments will be dissolved. Your people will learn their place. We estimate 3 days for complete submission." The transmission ended. The command center was quiet for a long moment. Then Mirai spoke. "Sir, I need to show you something." She pulled up data on her screen. "I've been monitoring Valtorian communications for the past month. They've been scanning our colonies, our defense positions, everything. They think we're easy prey." Dr. Yoonji Lee, the civilian xenobiologist attached to their unit, leaned forward to study the data. "What's their assessment based on?" "Physical comparisons," Mirai said. "They looked at human anatomy. They saw that we heal slowly compared to their regeneration. They saw that we have thin skin, no claws, no venom. They tested our gravity and found it lower than most coalition worlds. They think we're fragile," Yoonji said slowly. "They don't know," Jinho said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "They don't know what made us this way." Do-hyun nodded. "Earth wasn't kind to us." "No," Jinho agreed. "It wasn't." The next week passed in frantic preparation. Earth's government refused the Valtorian ultimatum. The coalition, as expected, remained neutral. No one wanted to fight the Valtorian Empire over one small, weak species. Jinho's battalion, the 7th Reconnaissance Strike Force, received deployment orders. They would defend Novus Terra, humanity's largest colony outside the solar system. 5,000 soldiers against whatever the Valtorian sent. Intel suggests 100,000 enemy troops, Mireille reported during the briefing. Standard Valtorian military doctrine favors overwhelming force. "What do we know about their combat style?" Jinho asked. Yoonji brought up images on the display. "Valtorians are bigger than humans, stronger. Their scales can deflect small arms fire. They can see in multiple spectrums. They have experience conquering 47 different species." But Jinho sensed there was more. "But they've never fought anyone like us," Yoonji said. "Every species they conquered surrendered quickly. The Valtorians practice ceremonial combat, honor duels, formal battle lines. They have rules." "Rules," Do-hyun said with a grin. "We're not good with rules." Jinho studied his team. Mireille, who could hack enemy communications and turn their own systems against them. Do-hyun, who once built a working cannon from spare parts and desperation. The 200 other soldiers in this room, each one a veteran of Earth's brutal wars. "Listen carefully," Jinho said. "The Valtorians think we're weak because we're small, because we're soft, because we come from an easy world." He paused. "They're wrong about that last part. Earth wasn't easy. Earth was hell. It made us fight for every single thing we have. He pulled up images of Earth. Not the beautiful blue marble from space, but the reality of the surface. Deserts that could kill in hours. Oceans that swallowed ships. Diseases that had wiped out millions. Animals that hunted humans for thousands of years. Weather that destroyed cities. We didn't evolve armor because we made it ourselves, Jinho continued. We didn't develop venom because we invented chemistry. We don't regenerate because we learned medicine. Everything we are, we built from nothing on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. The room was silent. The Valterranes have rules for war, Jinho said. We threw away rules a long time ago. We fight to win. We fight to survive. And we've been doing it longer than their empire has existed. Mirai raised her hand. Sir, I've intercepted their battle plans. They're sending the 44th Conquest Fleet. They expect to land, display force, and accept our surrender within 48 hours. Then we have an advantage, Jinho said. They're not ready for a real fight. What do? A young private asked. Taejin Song, fresh from training. Barely 21 years old. Jinho looked at the kid and remembered being that young once before the wars, before he learned what humans could really do. We show them what fragile looks like, Jinho said. We show them what happens when you back a human into a corner. We show them that Earth didn't make us weak. It made us dangerous. The 7th Reconnaissance Strike Force deployed to Novus Terra 3 days later. They dug in, prepared positions, and waited. Above them, in the cold dark of space, Valtorian warships entered the system. Jinho stood in the command bunker watching the enemy ships on radar. So many, too many. But numbers didn't tell the whole story. The Valterranes had ships and soldiers and technology. Humans had something else, something the aliens didn't understand yet. Humans had survived Earth, and anything that survived Earth could survive anything. They're beginning landing operations, Mirai reported. Jinho picked up his rifle and checked the magazine. Around him, his soldiers did the same. The weapons felt comfortable in their hands. Familiar. Humans had been holding weapons for 100,000 years. Let them come, Jinho said quietly. Let them learn. The first Valtorian dropships entered the atmosphere, burning trails across the sky. They thought they were coming to pacify a weak species. They thought this would be easy. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The Valtorian dropships landed in perfect formation across the plains outside New Seoul. Commander Hyunwoo Nam watched from the orbital defense platform as 100,000 alien warriors disembarked. Their ships formed neat rows. Their troops assembled in precise squares. Everything about them screamed organization and discipline. They fight like they're on parade, Hyunwoo muttered. Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies, his communications officer said. Demanding our surrender. Tell them we're thinking about it, Hyunwoo said. That should buy Jinho another hour. Down on the surface, Captain Jinho Kim had no intention of surrendering. He crouched in a trench with Sergeant Jiwon Bayek watching the alien army through her scope. Range to nearest target? Jinho asked. 2,000 meters, Jiwon said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. She had been a competitive shooter before the wars. Now she killed for her species instead of trophies. They're just standing there, waiting for something. They're waiting for us to come out and fight properly, Jinho said. Like civilized people. Corporal Do-hyun Choi appeared beside them, covered in dirt. Sir, the surprises are ready. All the way along their route. Good. Jinho checked his watch. In 20 minutes, they'll start marching toward the city. That's when we begin. Private Taejin Song crawled up to the position, his young face tight with fear. Sir, there are so many of them. Yes, Jinho said simply. He didn't offer false comfort. The kid would learn soon enough that numbers didn't mean everything. The Valtorian commander, visible through Jiwon's scope, raised a weapon and fired into the air. The signal to advance. 100,000 warriors began marching forward in perfect lines. They really do fight like it's a show, Jiwon muttered. Wait for it, Jinho said. The first line of Valterranes reached the markers Do-hyun had placed. Nothing happened. The aliens kept marching. 50 more meters. Still nothing. Then the ground erupted. Do-hyun had buried every explosive they had along the approach route. Not military explosives alone. He had raided construction sites, mining operations, chemical plants. He had mixed everything together in ways that broke a dozen safety regulations. The blast threw Valtorian bodies into the air. The perfect formation shattered. Aliens screamed in confusion and pain. Now, Jinho said calmly. Human weapons opened up from 100 hidden positions. Not the advanced energy weapons the Valteranes used, but good old-fashioned bullets. Cheap, effective, and absolutely deadly in the right hands. Jiwan fired. 2 kilometers away, a Valtorian officer's head snapped back. She cycled the bolt and fired again. Another officer down. They didn't think we could shoot this far, she said, finding her next target. The Valteranes tried to return fire, but they couldn't see where the shots came from. Human positions were dug in, camouflaged, hidden. The aliens had expected open battle, not this invisible death. Fall back to secondary positions, Jinho ordered. The humans disappeared from their trenches before the Valteranes could organize a response. By the time the alien forces reached the first human trench line, no one was there. Only more explosives triggered by motion sensors. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Valteranes held the ground they had started on and nothing more. Their neat formations were gone. Their casualties were in the thousands. In the human command bunker, Lieutenant Mireille Park listened to enemy communications. They're panicking, she said. They keep using words the translator can't process. I think they're swearing. What are they saying about us? Jinho asked. They call us shadows, ghosts, demons. Mireille looked up from her screen. They don't understand how we fight. That's the idea, Jinho said. The Valteranes tried again at night. That was their second mistake. Humans had poor night vision compared to many species, so they had invented night vision goggles, thermal imaging, motion sensors. They had taken their weakness and turned it into technology. The Valteranes could see in the dark naturally. They didn't need devices. They were so confident in their superior vision that they didn't expect the humans to see them coming. Jinho's forces hit them from all sides. Quick raids, then disappearing before the enemy could respond. The Valteranes fired wildly into the darkness, killing their own soldiers as often as hitting humans. Private Tajinsong was in one of the raid teams. He was terrified, running through the dark with his squad, when they stumbled into a group of Valtorian warriors. For a moment, everyone froze. Tajin saw the aliens up close for the first time. They were huge, easily 2.5 meters tall. Their scales gleamed in the moonlight. Their eyes were like a snake's, cold and reptilian. One of them laughed. Actually laughed. It raised a clawed hand to swipe at the tiny humans. Taijin's training took over. He fired his weapon on full automatic, emptying the entire magazine into the alien's torso. The Valtorian's scales deflected some bullets, but not all. It fell. The other aliens hesitated, shocked that such a small creature could kill one of them. That hesitation was fatal. Taijin's squadmates opened fire. The humans might be smaller, might be weaker, but they had bullets and they knew how to use them. By dawn, the Valteranes had lost 8,000 warriors. The humans had lost 300. This isn't possible, the Valtorian commander said, his words intercepted by Mirai. They should have broken. They should have surrendered. Why do they keep fighting? Because they're human, Jinho thought. Because Earth taught them that you fight or you die. There is no middle ground. The next day, the Valteranes changed tactics. They brought up their heavy armor, massive vehicles that could withstand anything the humans threw at them. Dohyun looked at the alien tanks through his binoculars and grinned. Oh, I have an idea. I'm afraid to ask, Jinho said. We captured some of their plasma rifles, right? Dohyun said. And we have industrial explosives. What if we combine them? That sounds incredibly dangerous. Yes, Dohyun said happily. 4 hours later, Dohyun had created something that made even Jinho nervous. He had taken Valtorian energy weapons, stripped out the safety systems, and rigged them to overload. Then he packed them with human explosives. It's beautiful, Dohyun said, admiring his creation. It's terrifying, Jinho corrected. When the Valtorian tanks rolled forward, human teams ran out and attached the devices to their hulls. The aliens tried to shake them off, but the humans had used magnetic clamps. The devices exploded. The combination of Valtorian energy and human explosives was devastating. Tanks that should have been invincible tore apart like paper. The Valteranes fell back again. On the orbital platform, Commander Hyunwoo Nam received a message from the Valtorian fleet. They were demanding he surrender the station. Tell them no, Hyunwoo said. Sir, they're targeting us with weapons. Then we make them regret it. The station wasn't a warship. It was designed for observation and coordination. But Hyunwoo had a crew of engineers who, like all humans, were good at improvising. They had rigged the station's engines to overload on command, turning it into a massive bomb. "If they fire on us, we ram the nearest carrier," Hyunwoo ordered. "Make sure they know that." The Valterranes held their fire. They were learning that humans didn't value their lives the way other species did. They would sacrifice themselves to take enemies with them. By the end of the first week, the situation was clear. The Valterranes had come with 100,000 warriors. 40,000 were dead or wounded. They had expected to lose perhaps 100. The humans had started with 5,000 soldiers. 3,000 remained. But they were still fighting, still striking, still refusing to break. In the human bunker, Dr. Yoonji Lee reviewed medical data. "We're losing people," she said quietly to Jinho. "But we're losing them slowly. The Valterranes are losing people quickly." "That's the difference," Jinho said. "They're not used to casualties. Every species they fought before surrendered, rather than die. They think losing 1,000 warriors is a disaster." "Is it not?" Yoonji asked. Jinho was quiet for a moment. "Humans fought a war once. On Earth, millions died. We called it World War II. The Valterranes have never seen anything like our history. They don't understand that we're willing to die if it means surviving." Sergeant Jiwon Bayek entered the bunker. She had been in the field for 72 hours straight, taking shot after shot at enemy officers. Her eyes were red with exhaustion. "Sir," she said, "I just took out their artillery coordinator. That's the 5th commander this week." "Get some rest," Jinho told her. "In a few hours," she said. "They're bringing up reinforcements. I want to greet them properly." That was the human way. Exhausted, outnumbered, facing impossible odds, and they still made jokes. They still kept fighting. The Valtorian command sent a message to their empire. It was intercepted by Mirai. "Request immediate reinforcements. Enemy more capable than estimated. Casualties unacceptable. Humans refuse to surrender. Repeat, humans refuse to surrender." Jinho read the message and allowed himself a small smile. They're starting to understand. The Crimson Claw Division arrived 3 weeks after the initial invasion. They were the Valtorian Empire's elite warriors, veterans of 50 conquered worlds. Their commander broadcast a message across all channels. "Primitive humans, you have fought well against regular forces, but now you face true warriors. Surrender or be exterminated." Colonel Sun Ho-yoon sat in the Strategic Command Center on Earth reviewing the transmission. His face showed no emotion. Before joining the military, he had investigated war crimes in the Jakarta conflict. He knew exactly what humans were capable of when pushed. "Send response," Sun Ho said to his communications officer. "Tell them we decline." "That's all, sir?" "That's all." On Novus Terra, Captain Jinho Kim gathered his remaining forces. 2,000 soldiers left from the original 5,000. They were exhausted, running low on supplies, and now facing fresh enemy troops. "Shouldn't we fall back?" Private Taejin Song asked. The young soldier had aged years in the past weeks. He had killed more enemies than he could count. "Fall back to where?" Corporal Do Hyun Choi said. "This is our colony, our home. We give them nothing." Dr. Yoonji Lee was studying data on her portable computer. "I think I understand something," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I've been comparing human biology to the Galactic Coalition species," Yoonji continued. "Do you know why the Valterranes think we're fragile?" "Because we are," Jinho said. "Compared to them, we're weak, smaller, we have thin skin. We heal slowly." "Yes," Yoonji said. "But do you know why we're like this? Why Earth made us this way?" She pulled up images on her screen. Earth's surface. The data shocked even the soldiers who had lived there their whole lives. "Earth has higher gravity than 80% of coalition worlds," Yoonji said. "Our diseases are more virulent. Our predators more dangerous. Our weather more extreme. Earth isn't a soft world. It's a death world." "What are you saying?" Lieutenant Mirai Park asked. "I'm saying we evolved on a planet that was trying to kill us every single day," Yoonji explained. "Yes, we're weaker than Valterranes in direct strength. But look at what Earth gave us in exchange." She brought up more data. "Humans can run for hours without stopping. Most species can't. Humans can survive injuries that would kill other species. Humans can go days without sleep, weeks without food. Humans can adapt to almost any environment because Earth forced us to. We're not fragile," Jinho said slowly. "We're survivors." "Exactly," Yoonji said. "The Valterranes see weakness. But weakness and fragility are not the same thing. Glass is fragile, It breaks easily, but humans bend and then bend more and keep going. Major Youngji Kang, commander of the aerospace squadron, entered the command post. His flight suit was scorched from his last mission. The Crimson Claw fleet is in orbit, he reported. They're better than the first wave. Faster, more aggressive. I lost 3 pilots in the last engagement. We need to change tactics, Jinho said. I have an idea, Youngjae said. But you won't like it. Tell me, what if we don't try to win dogfights? Youngji said. What if we just ram them? The room went silent. You want to commit suicide attacks? Sun Ho-yoon said over the communication link from Earth. I want to use the enemy's psychology against them. Youngjae corrected. They value their lives. They retreat when damaged. But if they know we'll ram them, that our pilots will sacrifice themselves, they'll hesitate. Fear will make them less effective. That's asking pilots to die, Mirai said quietly. Every pilot in my squadron volunteered, Youngjae said. We understand the mission. Humans die so humanity survives. That's always been our way. Sunho was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Authorization granted. Proceed with Doctrine Zero. Doctrine Zero, total war. No rules, no mercy. Fight with everything. Sacrifice everything until the enemy breaks or humanity does. The next day, Youngji led his squadron against the Crimson Claw fleet. When his fighter took damage, he didn't eject. He pointed his craft at a Valtorian cruiser and pushed the throttle to maximum. The impact destroyed both vessels. But it also sent a message. Humans would rather die than lose. The other Valtorian ships retreated, unwilling to face an enemy that didn't fear death. On the ground, the Crimson Claw Division began their assault. They were better than the first wave, more professional, more careful, but they still didn't understand humans. They expected fortifications. They found traps. They expected soldiers. They found guerrilla fighters who appeared from nowhere, struck and vanished. Private First Class Hana Shin, a field medic, worked in the aid station behind the lines. She had saved dozens of human soldiers, stitching wounds, administering medicine, pulling people back from death. One day, wounded Valtorian soldiers were brought to her station by human patrols. What do I do with them? Hana asked Jinho. Treat them, Jinho said, but sir, they're the enemy. Treat them anyway. Show them what humanity means. Hana worked on the wounded aliens, cleaning wounds, setting broken bones. The Valtoranes watched her with confused eyes. In their culture, enemies did not help enemies. Why? One of them asked through a translator. Why help us? Hana looked at the alien warrior. Because you're hurt. Because I can help. That's enough. The Valtorian didn't understand. His species fought for honor, for territory, for empire. Humans fought for survival, but they still had compassion. It was contradictory, illogical. It was human. Lieutenant Mirai Park finally cracked the Valtorian military encryption. She discovered their supply lines, their reinforcement schedules, their command codes. We can hit their main base, she told Jinho. I can disable their shields for exactly 4 minutes. That's the window. 4 minutes to destroy their headquarters, Jinho said. We'd need to move fast. We'd need to use chemical weapons, Do-hyun said. I've been working on something. Nerve agents combined with their own atmospheric processors. It would be lethal to them. They have no immunity. That's a war crime, Hana protested. By any definition. By galactic definition, Sun Ho-yoon said over the communication link. Earth never signed those treaties. We're not bound by rules we never agreed to. This is wrong, Yoonji said. This is war, Sunho replied coldly. In war, the only crime is losing. Jinho looked at his team. Mirai, who could hack any system. Do-hyun, who could build weapons from anything. Hana, who saved lives. Taejin, who had grown from a scared boy to a hardened soldier. We do it, Jinho decided. But I lead the mission. Anyone who dies, that's on me. They struck at night. 50 soldiers moving through the darkness toward the Valtorian base. Mirai disabled the shields from a remote terminal. Do-hyun's chemical weapon released silently into the enemy compound. The Valtoranes died without ever seeing their attackers. Hundreds of warriors killed by an invisible poison. It was efficient. It was brutal. It was necessary, or that's what Jinho told himself as he watched them die. Commander Hyunwoo Nam, still on the orbital defense platform, watched the assault from above. He saw human forces overrunning Valtorian positions. He saw the enemy falling back, confused and demoralized. They're breaking, his tactical officer said. Not yet, Hyunwoo said, but soon. In space, the Crimson Claw fleet received orders to retreat. They had lost 30 ships to suicide attacks. They had lost their ground base to chemical weapons. The humans were supposed to be weak, but they fought like demons. One Valtorian commander sent a message back to the Empire. These are not the soft creatures from the initial reports. These are predators. These are killers. Request immediate withdrawal. The request was denied. The Empire could not show weakness, could not admit defeat to such a small species. So the fighting continued. Corporal Do-Hyun Choi was holding a bridge against Valtorian assault when he took a plasma bolt to the chest. He fell, his armor breached, his body burning. Taejin Song pulled him to cover. "Medic, we need a medic!" Hana ran through enemy fire to reach them. She looked at Do-Hyun's wound and her heart sank. It was fatal. She knew it. He knew it. "Hold them," Do-Hyun whispered. "Just a little longer." "We will," Taejin promised. Do-Hyun smiled, and then he was gone. They held the bridge. 60 human soldiers against 300 Valtoranes. They held it through the night, fighting hand-to-hand when ammunition ran out, using knives and fists and teeth. By morning, the bridge was still in human hands. Only 20 soldiers remained standing. The Valtoranes had lost over 200 warriors trying to take it. News of Do-Hyun's death spread through the human forces. He became a symbol, a reminder of what they were fighting for. On Earth, Colonel Sun Ho-yoon received a communication from the Valtorian Empire. They wanted to negotiate a ceasefire. "Tell them we'll consider it," Sun Ho said, "after they leave Novus Terra. After they compensate us for damages. After they acknowledge that humanity is not prey." The Valtoranes were shocked. The humans were winning. Against all odds, against superior numbers and technology, they were actually winning. Captain Jin-Ho Kim stood on the battlefield, surrounded by the evidence of war. Bodies, human and alien, destroyed vehicles, scorched earth. This was the price of survival. This was what humanity paid to prove it was not weak. He thought about Do-Hyun, about Youngjae's pilots, about all the soldiers who would never see Earth again. And he thought about the Valtoranes, who came expecting an easy victory and found a nightmare instead. "They should have left us alone," Jin-Ho said quietly. But they hadn't. And now they were learning what humans already knew. Admiral Seokjin Hwang stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship, the Indomitable. The ship had been built in secret over the past month, using captured Valtorian technology combined with human engineering. It was rough, unpolished, and absolutely deadly. "Sir, the fleet is ready," his tactical officer reported. 50 ships cobbled together from mining vessels, cargo haulers, and civilian craft, each one armed with whatever weapons humanity could build or steal. "Take us to Valtorian space," Seokjin ordered. The crew looked at him in shock. One officer found his voice. "Sir, that's their territory. We'd be the invaders." "They came to our home," Seokjin said coldly. "Now we go to theirs. That's how you end a war. You make them afraid to start another one." On Earth, the Galactic Coalition was in emergency session. Human observers watched the debate through communication links. "The humans are planning a counterattack," one coalition member said, his tone horrified. "They want to invade Valtorian space. This is unprecedented. The attacked species does not invade back. They defend, they negotiate, they submit." "Humans don't submit," Colonel Sun Ho-yoon said from Earth. His voice was broadcast to the entire chamber. "You all assumed we were weak. You assumed we would follow your rules. You were wrong on both counts." "This is barbaric," another coalition member said. "This is war," Sun Ho replied. "You should be grateful we're fighting the Valtoranes instead of you." The coalition voted to condemn the human action, but took no steps to stop it. They were beginning to fear humanity almost as much as they feared the Valtoranes. Captain Boram Cho led the first boarding operation. Her Marines wore powered armor designed from captured Valtorian equipment, modified for human proportions. They approached a Valtorian supply ship in silence using minimal thrust. "Remember," Boram said to her team, "they expect ship combat to happen at long range. They don't expect anyone to be crazy enough to board in space." "We're not crazy," one Marine said. "We're human." "There's a difference." "Not much of one," Boram said with a grin. They attached to the Valtorian hull and cut through. The aliens inside were shocked when armored humans came pouring into their ship. They had never trained for boarding actions. No species did that. It was too dangerous, too unpredictable. But humans had been boarding enemy ships since they first built boats. It was in their nature. The Valteranes fought hard, but in the close confines of their own ship, their size was a disadvantage. Humans moved faster, worked better as a team, and most importantly, they weren't afraid to die. Borum's team took the ship in 20 minutes. They killed the crew, took the supplies, and set the vessel adrift. One down, Borum reported, moving to next target. Specialist Minho An was developing new weapons in the research facility on Mars. His latest creation was simple in concept, terrifying in practice. Kinetic bombardment rods, long metal poles that would be dropped from orbit. No explosives needed, Minho explained to Sun Ho-yoon. Just gravity and velocity. When these hit at orbital speeds, they have the force of nuclear weapons, but they're not nuclear, so they don't violate any treaties. Assuming we cared about treaties, Sun Ho said. Well, yes, Minho agreed, but this gives us plausible deniability. We're just dropping metal. Not our fault it destroys everything it touches. The rods were loaded onto human ships and deployed across Valtorian supply worlds. When they dropped, entire military bases vanished in explosions of kinetic energy. The Valteranes called it a crime against civilization. The humans called it effective. Captain Jin-Ho Kim, now promoted to general after his defense of Novus Terra, led ground forces into Valtorian territory. His orders were simple. Take enemy supply depots, destroy infrastructure, make them feel the war. It was the Sherman Doctrine named after an ancient Earth general. Destroy the enemy's ability to wage war, make the cost too high to continue. Scorched Earth, Lieutenant Mireille Park said quietly, reading the orders. Yes, Jin-Ho said. He didn't like it, but he understood it. War was not about being liked. It was about surviving. They hit a Valtorian agricultural world. Not soldiers, but farmers. The crops fed enemy armies, so the crops had to go. Private Tejan Song, now a corporal, helped set the charges. Sir, these are civilians. These civilians grow food that keeps soldiers fighting, Jin-Ho said. We're not killing them. We're destroying their crops. They'll survive. They'll just be hungry. It still feels wrong. It is wrong, Jin-Ho agreed. War is wrong, but we didn't start this. We're just finishing it. The agricultural world burned. The Valteranes screamed in outrage. How dare the humans attack civilians? How dare they destroy resources? Where was this outrage when you invaded us? Mirai asked in a broadcast to Valtorian channels. Where was your honor when you threatened to enslave humanity? You taught us this style of war. Don't complain when we learn the lesson. Admiral Seok Jin Hwang's fleet reached Valtoria Prime, the enemy homeworld. The planet was beautiful, covered in purple forests and silver cities. Billions of Valteranes live there, protected by massive orbital defenses. We can't take that planet, his tactical officer said. Their defenses are too strong. We don't need to take it, Seok-jin said. We just need to siege it. Human ships spread out around the planet, blockading trade routes and supply lines. Nothing came in. Nothing went out. Valtoria Prime was cut off from the Empire. They can't hold forever, Seok-jin said. Let them feel what it's like to be trapped. Let them know fear. Inside the Valtorian command center on their homeworld, military leaders argued. The humans are savages, one general said. They have no honor. They attack civilians, they use chemical weapons, they ram our ships with their own bodies. They fight like animals. They fight to win, another general said quietly. Perhaps that is why they're winning. We should use nuclear weapons, a third suggested. Destroy Earth, end this, and become the species that committed genocide, the Emperor said. The coalition would turn on us. We would be alone. No, we must find another way, but there was no other way. Humanity had learned from every battle, adapted to every tactic. They had gone from defending one colony to attacking the Valtorian Empire itself in just 3 months. Captain Borum Cho's Marines had taken 37 enemy ships. She had lost half her original force, but the survivors were veterans now, skilled in the brutal art of zero-gravity combat. Ma'am, we've intercepted a supply convoy, her second-in-command reported. 20 freighters, minimal escort. Take them all, Borum ordered. No survivors on the escorts. Let the freighter crews escape. I want them to report what they saw. Fear tactics, ma'am. Psychological warfare, Borum corrected. If the Valteranes are too afraid to move supplies, their empire starves. Fear is a weapon. We should use every weapon we have. The raids continued. Day after day, human forces struck at Valtorian assets. They didn't try to hold territory. They didn't build bases. They just destroyed and moved on, like sharks in water, always moving, always hunting. Specialist Minho An developed another weapon. This one was software, a virus designed to infiltrate Valtorian computer systems. It didn't destroy data. It subtly changed it. Supply manifests showed wrong quantities. Navigation systems had small errors. Communications had tiny delays. It's perfect, Minho said proudly. They'll never know if they can trust their own technology. The virus spread through Valtorian networks. Ships got lost. Supplies went to the wrong places. Orders were garbled. The Empire's efficiency, its greatest strength, began to crumble. On Novus Terra, now secure, Dr. Yunji Lee worked in a hospital filled with wounded soldiers. She had spent months documenting the war, studying both human and Valtorian casualties. The difference is remarkable, she told General Jinho Kim during his visit. Valtorians die from wounds that humans survive. Not because they're weaker, but because they're not used to being hurt. Their bodies don't know how to cope with severe trauma. And humans. Humans have been surviving trauma since we lived in caves, Yunji said. Our bodies expect damage. Our minds cope with pain. Earth made us that way, she showed him data. Humans with terrible injuries who kept fighting. Humans who should have died but somehow survived. Humans who adapted to conditions that would kill any other species. We're not super soldiers, Yunji said. We're just from a planet that was so harsh only the most resilient survived. We're the descendants of survivors. That's all. That's everything, Jinho said quietly. He thought about Corporal Do-hyun Choi, who died holding a bridge, about Major Young-jae Kang, who rammed his fighter into an enemy ship, about the thousands of humans who had fallen in this war. What's the casualty count? Jinho asked. 8,000 dead, Yunji said. 20,000 wounded. Out of the 50,000 who deployed. And the Valtorians? Over 300,000 casualties. Their empire is collapsing. Jinho felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. The war was being won, but the price was terrible. Every number was a person. Every statistic was someone who would never go home. Lieutenant Mireille Park entered the hospital. Sir, we've received a transmission from the Valtorian Emperor. He wants to negotiate. Terms? Jinho asked. Complete withdrawal from human space. Reparations for damages. Formal recognition of humanity as a sovereign power. And a non-aggression pact. They're suing for peace, Jinho said. Yes, sir. We won. But as Jinho looked around the hospital at the broken bodies and haunted eyes, the peace negotiations took place on a neutral station at the edge of coalition space. General Jinho Kim walked into the conference room wearing his dress uniform. The medals on his chest represented battles fought, soldiers lost, and victories earned through blood. Across the table sat the Valtorian commanders who had led their forces against humanity. They looked different now. Their scales seemed duller. Their eyes held something humans recognized easily. Fear. General Kim, the Valtorian military coordinator, said through the translator. We acknowledge defeat. Your terms are acceptable. Why did you start this war? Jinho asked. Not part of the negotiations, just something he needed to know. The Valtorian was quiet for a moment. We studied your species. We saw weakness. Small bodies, short lives, thin skin. We thought you were prey. And now? Now we know the truth, the alien said. You are not prey. You are predators. Perhaps the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. We should never have come to your world. No, Jinho agreed. You shouldn't have. The treaty was signed. The Valtorian Empire would withdraw from all human territories. They would pay reparations for 50 years. They would dissolve their military to 1/10 its current size. Most importantly, they would acknowledge humanity as an equal power. The Galactic Coalition watched in stunned silence as the mighty Valtorian Empire was brought to its knees by a species that had only been in space for 3 years. Colonel Sun Ho-yoon attended the Coalition Assembly to address their concerns. He stood before hundreds of alien species, each one watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Many of you have questions about how we fight, Sun-ho said, about the tactics we used, the weapons we deployed, the lines we crossed. The chamber was silent. You called us barbaric, uncivilized. You said we committed war crimes, Sun-ho continued. By your standards, you're probably right. But understand this. We didn't choose this war. We didn't ask to be invaded. We simply refused to die. Your methods were excessive, a coalition representative said. You could have surrendered, negotiated, found a peaceful solution. Peaceful? Sunho's voice was cold. The Valterains came to enslave us. There is no peaceful response to that. You all stood by and watched, expecting us to lose. Now you're uncomfortable because we won. That's your problem, not ours. What if humanity decides to expand? Another representative asked. What if you become the aggressors? We won't, Sunho said. We don't want war. We never did. But if someone attacks us again, we will respond the same way. We will fight. We will win. And we will make sure the attacker never threatens anyone again. The message was clear. Leave humanity alone or face the consequences. Back on Earth, the celebrations were muted. Yes, they had won. Yes, humanity was safe. But the cost was everywhere. Lieutenant Mireille Park worked in the military archives documenting everything that happened. Future generations needed to know, needed to understand what war really meant. We lost 30,000 people, she said to Jinho during one of his visits. 30,000 humans who will never see their families again. Who died in the cold dark of space or on alien soil fighting for survival. I know, Jinho said. I knew most of them. Was it worth it? Mireille asked. Jinho was quiet for a long time. We're alive. Humanity continues. So yes, it was worth it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Dr. Yoonji Lee published her research on human biology and how Earth had shaped humanity. The paper was titled, Death World Evolution, How Adversity Creates Strength. It became required reading in every coalition university. Humans are not naturally violent, Yoonji wrote. They are naturally survivors. Earth was harsh, so they learned to endure. Earth was dangerous, so they learned to fight. Earth was unpredictable, so they learned to adapt. What the galaxy sees as human aggression is really just the instinct to survive, honed over millions of years. The paper changed how alien species viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as weak newcomers. They were recognized as survivors from a death world, a species that had earned its place through suffering. Corporal Taejin Song, now a sergeant, was assigned to train new recruits. Young soldiers who had never seen combat. He taught them everything he learned on Novus Terra. The enemy will probably be bigger than you, Taejin told the recruits. Stronger, maybe faster, but that doesn't matter. You have something they don't. You have human stubbornness. You have the willingness to keep fighting when every logical reason says to quit. Use that. What if we're scared? A recruit asked. Then you're smart, Taejin said. Fear keeps you alive. The trick is to be scared and fight anyway. That's what makes us human. He thought about his first battle when he was terrified and barely functional. And he thought about Corporal Do-Yun Choi, who died with a smile knowing his death meant something. Every one of you might die, Taejin told the recruits. That's the truth of being a soldier. But if you die protecting Earth, protecting humanity, then your death has meaning. Remember that when things get hard, Captain Boram Cho was appointed to lead a new coalition defense force. Other species wanted to learn from human tactics. They wanted humans to teach them how to fight. I'm not sure this is a good idea, Boram told Admiral Seokjin Hwang. Why not? Seokjin asked. Because we fight dirty. We do things that horrify other species. If we teach them our methods, we're spreading that brutality across the galaxy. True, Seokjin said. But consider the alternative. If the next war happens and coalition species don't know how to really fight, more people die. At least this way, maybe the next aggressor thinks twice before starting a war. Boram took the job. She trained coalition soldiers in human warfare, ambush tactics, improvised weapons, psychological operations, the things that Earth had perfected over thousands of years of constant conflict. Her students were both fascinated and disturbed. Private First Class Hana, Shin opened a medical clinic on Novus Terra. She treated anyone who came to her, humans, Valterains, any species that needed help. Many Valtorian refugees had settled on the colony after the war, unable to return home to their broken empire. At first, humans were angry. These were the enemy. But Hana treated them anyway. Why do you help us? A Valtorian mother asked, holding her injured child. We invaded your world. We tried to kill you. You didn't, Hana said, treating the child's broken arm. Your government did. Your military did. But you're just trying to survive, same as us. That makes you human. Well, not literally, but you understand what I mean. The Valtorian didn't understand, but she was grateful. Major Young Jae Kang had survived the war, though barely. His fighter had been shot down in the final battle, and he spent 3 weeks in a Valtorian prison camp before rescue. He retired from the military and never flew again. He lived quietly on Earth in a small apartment overlooking the ocean. He didn't talk about the war. Didn't want to remember the people he killed, the ships he destroyed, the moment he almost rammed his fighter into an enemy vessel. "You're a hero," people told him. "I'm a killer," he would reply. There's a difference. The war had broken something in him. Maybe in all of them. You couldn't fight like humans fought without losing part of yourself. General Jinho Kim made one final trip before retiring. He traveled to Novus Terra, to the memorial they had built for the fallen. 30,000 names carved into black stone. One of them was Corporal Dohyun Choi. Jinho stood before Dohyun's name and remembered. The jokes, the improvised weapons, the smile as he died. "All of it, we won," Jinho said quietly to the stone. "We survived. Because of you. Because of all of you." He thought about the question Mirai had asked. Was it worth it? The answer was yes and no, and something in between. Yes, because humanity was safe, because they had proven they were not prey, because future generations would grow up free. No, because of the cost, because of the methods they used, because of what they became in order to survive. War had changed humanity. They were no longer the hopeful newcomers to the galaxy. They were the species that fought back. The species that didn't lose. The species that scared even the Coalition. Is that better? Jinho wondered. Being feared instead of dismissed? He didn't know. Maybe there was no good answer. 6 months after the war ended, a new species called the Corthan Dominion made threats at the Coalition border. They had not heard about the human-Valtorian war. They thought the Coalition was weak. The Coalition Assembly met to discuss response options. The Corthans had a massive fleet, 1 billion warriors, technology that matched anything the Coalition possessed. "We need time to prepare," one representative said. "Time to build defenses. Time to negotiate." Or, another representative said slowly, "We send the humans." The chamber went quiet. "The humans are peacekeepers now." The first representative protested. "We can't just unleash them on every threat, can't we?" Colonel Sun Ho-yoon asked. He was attending as Earth's Coalition representative. "The Corthans don't know what we are, what we can do. Maybe it's time to show them." "You would fight another war?" a Coalition member asked, horrified. "No," Sunho said. "We would end another war quickly before it starts. The Corthans need to learn the same lesson the Valtoranes learned. Some species don't surrender. Some species fight back. And some species, if you push them hard enough, will push back so hard you'll wish you never started." The Coalition debated for hours. Finally, they voted. The Corthan Dominion received a message.